You got it?
All right. IT is a complicated issue, but for most companies, it's also an essential issue. One of the decisions that they have to make is whether or not they have an internal IT department or they hire a managed service provider, which is an outside company to provide their IT. For most small to mid-sized businesses, the best choice is really a managed service provider. There's a couple of advantages that are pretty clear that weigh in favor. The experience that the staff on the managed service provider has, the fact that the small company doesn't then have to deal with hiring and training the employees, their IT employees, and just the overall there's less cost. So first, let's talk about the experience. When you deal with a managed service provider, they're dealing with more companies. And so instead of just dealing with your particular issues, they're dealing with multiple people's issues. So when you have more companies, you have more problems. When you have more problems, you get more experience. So that's one of the things that was noted by Dahl in 2019 in his article. The other advantage is there's more staff. When you're dealing with a managed service provider, they can hire more staff that's dedicated to IT problems and different types of issues. And they'll have a wider range of experience because there's more of them. And also, when rather than having to train your people and all of the people, they can train their people, and because of that and because they're dedicated to IT, they'll also have more training because it's more of a priority for them as an IT company than for you as whatever else your business is doing. One of the other things is about the employees. Obviously, there's going to be 1 to 4 employees that might be working for you. And if they're managed service providers, you don't have to deal with hiring them or training them. So, one thing mentioned is by Leidenfield in 2017 is the hiring process. Obviously, sometimes it's easy to think, all right, I'll just go and hire the people, but finding the right people, weeding through all their resumes, and going through their training process afterwards can be a very large hassle. There's not only just the hiring process, but then also the time it takes to train them, and then also the money required for whoever is training them, as well as the people you're training, and then they may not even work out. And meanwhile, you've gone through all these resources. And on top of that, afterwards, you have to maintain them, so you have to bring more training to them to keep them up to date with any other changes that you make. And then not only that, you have to occupy them, because in a small business, sometimes there's just not enough for the IT people to do. So as Nyberg noted in 2018, sometimes they would have IT staff that would actually intentionally make the network more complicated than it was supposed to be, just so that they would have a job, so that the company felt like they needed them. And one of the last things to consider is cost. It's usually one of the things that the businesses consider most, but one employee, and if you just have a low-level employee, the one employee can cost $50,000 plus associated benefits. That was noted by Dahl. If you wanted a higher level IT manager, that position costs anywhere from $84,000. That's the mean, so it could go up or a little less. So there's the cost of that along with the benefits, and then also you also have any kind of tools. So if there's network tools or specialized hardware that's required to do any of the projects, you have to pay for them even if you're not going to use them all the time. And of course, if you have any specialized projects, they may be outside of the range or skill level of your project, of your IT person. So if it's databases, you may need to hire a database consultant. If it's running network wiring, that might be something they're not familiar with, and so then you're going to once again be hiring an outside company. Whereas if you already start hiring a managed service provider, they may have the expertise to accomplish those things. So there are some distinct advantages to internal IT. The proximity, obviously the employee is on site and you can talk with them at any time you need to. They're obviously, because they're your employee, they're more manageable, and you can tell them what to do and they have to listen more or less. And you have complete control of the process, so the IT staff can run and do things the way that you want it to do. With an external one, you may not have those abilities. They're going to have their own processes and their own staff. However, you can always switch companies and get a different company to find them. So obviously for a small to mid-sized company, the advantages of a managed IT company is much better, between the experience that you're going to receive from having more staff with more training and the not having to deal with the whole hiring, training, firing, all of that process, as is going to decrease your costs, make the cost more stable, and just it's a hard thing to beat, rather than having an internal IT department. That's it.
Yay.
All right, hold on.
How long is it supposed to
I
be?
didn't shut up.
5 to 7 minutes.